My name's Chris Dreyer. I'm the moderator of this panel, and my day job, I'm the CEO of CFA Switzerland. CFA stands for Chartered Financial Analysts. I'm representing the mainstream investor kind of aspect or angle of this. Obviously, we've been having an event that's really pitching of fintech fintech firms to investors, the angel, the VC community, etc. This panel is actually focused on something quite different because we're pitching Switzerland to the bright young things that you guys are, to the ideas, and most of all to the people behind these ideas, because ideas, there's a dime a dozen for them, but what's really scarce and where the problem is really putting them in place successfully. The successfully part is obviously the critical bit, because there's a lot of failure that's also going to happen, and the Swiss culture is not really known for really handling failure very well, and especially the Swiss banking culture doubly so, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. The topic of this panel is balancing regulatory priorities. We've got about 20 minutes for the discussion among ourselves, and maybe 10 minutes to take questions from the floor. Time starts now. I've got a great panel to work with. Let me introduce them basically not really in the series of how they're sitting. We've got a fintech entrepreneur to start with, Alexandre. He's the CEO of investGlass and also the vice president of Swiss Finance and Technology Association, today's host. We've got the banker, Thomas, on the far side. Thomas is the deputy CEO of the Swiss Bankers Association, so about as banker as you get, right?
Well, thanks for... I'm an association man.
We've got the regulator, Noël, in between Alexandre and Thomas. Noël is... Noël is the head regulation at Finma, so certainly the right guy to be on this panel. And we've got the politician, Ruedi. He's also a technology entrepreneur, and he's standing for the upper house, and E-Day is just 7 weeks away, right? So we'll see about that. I've got a couple of very brief questions that I would like to get started on, and we'll take the discussion from there. As I said, questions I'd be really only be taking after we've had a nice run-in here on the panel. There will be quite a good bit of time for that as well. So let me start with Alexandre. Alexandre, why are you still here?
It's a good. Thank you. It's a great question. I think first, Switzerland is a fantastic place to start your company. When you open your company, you receive a check, which is different from other countries where you have to pay first day. Infrastructures are very efficient. You have hard-working mindsets. The government is very business-oriented. Now, it's a very complex place because servers, which my company and most startups rely on, are 10 times more expensive than what you would find elsewhere in Europe. Switzerland is secluded. We cannot use APIs that are developed by colleagues outside Europe. Otherwise, you have some cross-border identity issues. And last but not least, banking software are sometimes a bit complex, not to say fuzzy, to use. And there's a lack of cooperation still, and no open source. I hope I see that some people here are developing very nice and very well-known softwares. Open source will be, I hope, a game changer soon for the banking sector.
Okay, thanks very much. Next, Noël, what are Finma's priorities, and do you actually, there's another microphone there as well, do you actually monitor what your peers in other jurisdictions are doing in terms of their priorities? I'm not naming any names here.
Yeah, okay. I can say that Finma takes the whole fintech digitalization issue very seriously, and Finma is of the opinion that innovation is very important also for the competitiveness of the Swiss financial market as a whole. And therefore we are in touch with the industry, but also with science, with the universities, to learn more about the business models, the technologies behind there, and that's, I think, very important for us. Of course, we also monitor the international developments. There we can assess that the international standard setters still are analyzing the phenomenon fintech. There are only very few fintech specific regulations internationally. The Finma launched a regulatory project under the title Regulatory Barriers for Fintech, and we are in this course to analyze the financial market regulation for handicaps, for fintech handicaps. Means where do we have any technology or technological barriers in our regulation, and we aim to have really a technical neutral regulation. That should be the goal of the whole project. So, because I think regulation should not should support innovation and not kill it, and therefore we do these analyses. So, for example, the first outcomes of that we already implemented in the ordinance for money laundering, the Finma ordinance, where we introduced the possibility for an electronic identification and also a basis to allow video identification in the future. So, as you see, we are really engaged in this topic.
And yet, I did have a look at your legal basis, and the mandate for Finma is, and I'm quoting from Article 5 now of the law, in accordance with the Financial Market Act, financial market supervision has the objectives, and there's only two, of protecting creditors, investors, and insured persons, as well as ensuring the proper functioning of the financial markets. Those are the two objectives. Next phrase is, it thus contributes to sustaining the reputation and competitiveness of Switzerland's financial center. So there's an instrumental relationship to just these two objectives. And obviously there's a conflict between that innovation part, I would argue, and we can certainly discuss that, and these two objectives. But I would like to go on next to Ruedi, basically, from your perspective, from the political and policy perspective. What do you propose then to do, given that the set of priorities is such that innovation is evidently not really an objective for Finma?
Also the problem is not only that it's not an objective, because there are lots of initiatives in the parliament who want to change the objective. For example, for my colleague Christian Dreyer from Geneva, he has proposed that we have also economical competition goals in, like we have it in the United States or in England or in the EU. And for me, the problem is that we have an opposition from the Finma against to change the mandate. And I would wish, as a politician, because then things goes much faster than when the Finma would say, okay, we accept that there is another goal. For me, Finma is not a regulator who has to forbidden things. He's maybe like Swiss Medic, who has to allow new drugs. That's the goal. We want new therapies, we have to allow new drugs, we have to allow new therapies, and I think the Finma has the same job. We have to allow innovation, new products, new parts, and we have to allow it fast. And that must be the goal, and so this goal must also go in the law, in the Article 5. And we want to change it. We have the initiative in the Parliament. It's now in my commission. But the problem is, the regulator says no to this. He don't want it. So maybe we can, in this panel, agree that we change, that we change the way of discussion a little bit.
Okay. There's an interesting push in a certain direction, but let's first get the introductory questions through. Thomas, it's become very fashionable to do fintech in banking circles. Every bank basically has their own fintech initiative. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's going to be failures, and that's not really part of banking culture, at least not explicitly so. What do you think your members how are your members going to deal with that? Is there going to be a backlash, gnawing of teeth and all that?
Well, I don't hope so, but I mean, you must understand one thing. I mean, I don't hope so, but you must understand one thing. I mean, banks cannot introduce beta versions of software, like for instance Microsoft, and then let the people or the customers test it, and maybe 2 years from the first initial launch, the system works. This is not possible for banks, because one of our major assets is confidence, reputation of our clients, of our customers, and therefore the stuff that we introduce has to work. What I agree is we should probably stop being too perfect. This is and stop to have strategies that go beyond the next 10 years or so, because this is impossible to foresee. Therefore, speed is essential, but quality is also essential. And from that point of view, I'm sure the banks understand that, and the banks know that, because if they don't push fintech, someone else will. That's not in our interest.
Yeah. Sure.
If I may, the thing is that those new fintechs sometimes are replacing what the banks used to do. And the biggest issue is that today everything is about the consumer. It's not anymore about the banks. And to come back to what you said, the biggest big step the Finma and the regulator should go is to know how they would prevent a fintech blow-up. Because we know about bank blow-up. And normally we implement the solutions after the storm. I hope that maybe this time, and I'm sure that all the fintech companies will play the game, we can implement regulation before the storms come. And again, I would like to thank you for being here.
May I add something? I mean, blow-ups are normal in the economy. I mean, I'm fortunate to be old enough to have survived certain hypes, and for instance, one hype, the dot-com hype in the year around 2000. Some of these companies got bust. Some others, Amazon, Google, are world leaders. So therefore, this was a short-term hype, but a long-term transition of the whole economy. And therefore, I think I'm not in favor of the word regulation. I prefer framework, and I think it's the job of the Finma to give a certain framework, because there I agree with Finma. When it comes to money, to asset, to wealth, certain aspects have to be regulated. Certain framework has to be established.
And yet there has been a study that was recently published, or is just about to be published, by an economic geographer, was quoted in the Financial Times, that the growth of New York as an asset management center, explosive growth after the crisis, was due to the very strong regulation, comparatively strong regulation in the US, and basically the firms there bulked up and thereby could actually attract the assets. So there is, from that point of view, a counterintuitive case for strong regulation as well. And if that regulation would actually be including, or would be including the mandate for being innovative, as we've heard from Ruedi just before. Noël, what do you think? Why is that opposition from Finma to change that mandate?
I think it's not our duty to formulate our own mandate. That is made by the law, and the law is made by the parliament. But the other question is, regulation. The power for regulation. Where is this power? And it's not only Finma that has this power, or it's on a small place where we can regulate.
I'm surprised.
But the only point is, and the discussion before, I think that's much more interesting, this balance between the use of regulation and the downsides. I think it's very important to get to a well balanced regulation that doesn't kill innovation, that enables innovation and addresses also the risks. And I think that is a very important point, and not a very not very easy to make. And I think it's also very important to talk together and to learn about the needs and concerns of each other to really make possible this balancing.
And yet I hear from many people that I have contact with, Finma is relatively difficult to talk to compared to the other regulator in the room. So that may be a topic. But Thomas, you wanted to say something.
But that's because it's in English now.
So first of all, Swiss Bank Association is not a regulator. We are a trade association who has, in some respects, also self-regulatory capabilities. But I want to really challenge your expression about strong regulation, because it's not a question of strength. It's a question of an intelligent regulation. Intelligent regulation is a regulation that adjusts when the processes of business changes, and digitalization in banking definitely changes the process, changes how we do bank, and therefore the regulation must adjust. So it's intelligent regulation. I'm sure the Americans, in their pragmatic way, are probably a bit more intelligent in that respect, but it's not a question of strength.
Okay. Noël, you wanted to respond to the issue of the language or the addressability? I'm not sure.
No. Only that's a very good point. So I'm totally agree that the regulation must change with the businesses, but it must be neutral with regard to technology and business models, because otherwise we have to guarantee an equal to trade all the participants equal, independent of technology or business model. I think that should be the goal.
But if you say that you want to have regulation that's agnostic of technology, you're implying that. Do you actually have the mandate to do that? Do you feel that this works for you as your mandate currently is? Do you have the appropriate resources, or what's the difference in how Finma operates and puts its priorities to for instance, the FCA? I mean, Alexandre, you've told me that you've been in touch with London as well, yeah. And there the interaction actually presents itself on a very different, or with a very different quality as well. Maybe you could actually expand a little bit on
yes,
that.
The first time I met with the head of the Conservative Party, when I was starting my company, the first question they asked me is, how much do you need to do it in the UK instead of doing it in Geneva? I told them, thank you, no thank you. But also there's another type of mindset. We talk about the US companies. We have to see that those companies have a very different behavior to the risks and to legal risks and provisions of legal risks. When a multi-billion company comes into a country like Switzerland without any authorization to disintermediate the taxi business, this is something that the government cannot react to in a very efficient way. And they know that they are taking a risk, but they prefer to do the business, and they come in. And we have to see that it will be the same. So that's why I think probably the agnostic technology approach is the right one, because it's the consumer now that decides to what they want to sell, to buy, where they want to lend, to who they want to share their investment with. Crowd equity, crowd giving, crowd lending. They need guidelines before they blow, and everyone is ready to play the game.
Well, the jury is still out whether those large, whether Uber, etc., can operate in jurisdictions where they don't have the approval. But then, Ruedi, maybe you could give us some of your thinking about how you would propose to approach Finma's behavior. We've heard that there's not really a position or an issue about the mandate. How would you suggest that the political space can do something to better balance this risk behavior, which is currently predominantly set by the lawyers in Finma, towards a more entrepreneurial, more innovative, directed kind of push as well?
As first, I learned from Finma that they will do better in the future, and they bring a report out to fix all the regulation issue that's happened with fintech in their area. That's already one thing, and we have also to know here in the room, Finma is maybe in one part a part of the problem and a part of the solution, but we have lots of other regulation who are not really in the Finma responsibility. Also, if you go to crowdfunding, that's in the law the problem. We have to change their law. When you go to share equity program, then we have not the Finma is in the lead. We have other problems where we have to solve. Also, I think we have in a lot of regulation, not only in Finma regulation, problems who makes it difficult to bring some business model really in place in Switzerland. And that's brought me to the point that I would ask the branch, please inform me about these different problems. I'm quite willing to open my commission maybe in the last session this year for have a 2-hour chat where we find all the problems, and for this we need your knowledge. You cannot mean we do good law if you don't approach us with your problems in the end of the day. So I would ask all people to send the problems, send it to me at ruedi@noser.com, and then maybe we have a 2-hour chat and look what we can do, what we can fix, what can the regulator do in her competence, where we have to change the law, where we have maybe to go to the financial department for change there something. We have tax issues, we have in the share rights, we have issues in the lending protection, we have lots of issues I've learned in the last 4 or 5 weeks. But all these issues we have to put on the table, and then maybe we need something like a master plan to fix some points. I'm quite optimistic that the willingness in Bern is here to fix the issues if we really know the issues.
Now,
may I quickly emphasize that, because we have also been talking with several people of your industry, and we hear lots of vague criticism about Finma or about the banks or whatever. But at the end of the day, in order to change things, you have to be very precise. And I mean, you have now a new association. There is also another association, and I think it would be, being an association man, obviously associations have a very important function in the ecosystem of Switzerland, and therefore it's important that you formulate your agenda, your points, and then you can forward it to Ruedi. Obviously, you could also forward it to me. thomas.sutter@sba.ch, because being an association that has been established for over 100 years, we have some experience in dealing with Finma, with other regulators, with the politicians, and I think that this is one of our core competence, and therefore we'd like to help, because our objective is to have a regulatory framework that helps the ecosystem, Fintech Switzerland.
I would now like to make an elevator pitch for me, send it to me. I will also give you the reason why, because I think lots of problem has to do that there is an existing business model and a challenging business model. And I tell you, the way how Bern is working, the existing business model is stronger. So that's maybe why we have ICT Switzerland, that's the digital association who has that connection also in Bern, maybe to change something. So it's maybe better not go to the banking association, because there you have to pick all the big fishes on the table and they have to agree before they do something.
No, just one argument, because
and that's the last
as you know,
one.
the banks have the value chain right now, about 80% of the value chain is being done internally. And when banks are being asked what is really core for your business to survive, it's more or less the client. So they say about 20 or 25% of the value chain is core. What does it mean? It means business opportunities for fintech, because the value chain will be disrupted one way or the other. So therefore, it's not this or that, it's really, there are two kinds of fintech companies. Companies who disrupt really completely, which is okay if you're successful, or fintech companies who work together with existing banks, insurance, or whatever. And therefore, thomas.sutter@sba.ch is not so bad.
It's for the 80%, I guess, so we should actually use that email address. For the rest, it's Ruedi's.
Yeah, to whomever you send your email, take us in copy, so we are informed.
And we're very excited to have you guys also. I'm the Thomas and Noël and Ruedi, so it's also a fantastic opportunity to have you all around for the first time. Thank you.
But still, all about being nice to each other. The problem with Swiss politics is, I mean, we're possibly not too late, but Swiss politics is very slow in its operation. And the question is there a way in which we can actually accelerate things, in which we can come up to speed with how other jurisdictions work in that space?
Also be careful with saying slow. Of course, you have in the moment Mr. Osborne in England who makes big speeches and do something, but maybe in a half a year you have other priorities and will not do anything more then. And in Switzerland, when it's start to move, then it moves, and you can be sure it moves. Also, I'm not. Also,
Has it started to move?
It was also the first comment of you, Alexandre, who says the environment is not bad, and the reason is why the legislation does a good job in the end of the day. And I'm quite sure we can bring things in the right direction, and I'm also quite sure we can bring things in the right direction in the right time. I'm quite convinced on this.
Okay, now I would like to take it to the floor. We still have a couple of minutes left to do that. Who can I pass the word for the first question?
My question, can you hear me? Yeah. My question to Mr. Bieri. Well, first a comment to Ruedi Noser, so that's the second time you come up with Swissmedic. From my own experience, I don't think that is necessarily such a good example to compare with. We can maybe talk that another way in that. But to Mr. Bieri, talking on knowledge about fintech, talking on experience about fintech on a scale 1 to 10, where do you see Finma? Being 10 the best and 1 the worst?
Joker.
To start with myself, about 5. But now we have our experts in the supervision divisions, and I think there we have really good knowledge. But yeah, I think that's a problem we see in each new developing area. Everyone has to learn more about that, and you develop, or your industry develops, new business models. So you can't expect that we already know them, because otherwise I wouldn't work with Finma and make my own enterprise. So you also have to understand that we are every time a little bit behind, because we first have to learn about business models, about new techniques. But we're not only jurists or economists. We also have engineers and such stuff like that. So I think it's not too bad, but we every time can improve. That's also the goal why we meet now, your industry, and why we want to learn more about the whole story. And we are in contact with the universities also to learn more. So yeah, we surely can improve, but I wouldn't say that we don't have any idea of the whole business.
Okay. We've got another question here.
Okay, just a quick question. I'm Natasha from Capco, and actually it's just one of the things that we see from the regulators with them pushing for more cost and charges transparency. Actually, almost a plus side is that the banks are now looking at more innovative ways to respond to that and to provide consumers with services which are value added. And I just wondered if you had the similar thoughts with regards to actually that's a real plus side.
Anybody in particular?
In general, actually.
Who wants to take this?
Maybe I can tell you there's a new trend that is decentralizing the risks. There has been this old trend, but that's a real core banking problem of centralizing and having all the responsibility in-house of an institution. But now a lot of banks are looking for alternative solutions like crowd equity, crowdfunding, crowd giving, etc., as a way to lower the balance sheet, as a way to decrease sometimes of risk and optimize maybe some ratings. You know, it's always two extremes. I think that in the end, consumers have to be protected also. So banks, consumers.
If I may add quickly, I think it's very important that the goal, the objective of regulation should not change. It's, as you mentioned, it's protection, security, but the means have to change. The regulation have to change. And that's something where we all should work together. But it cannot be that at the end the client is there naked and we have Wild West. You know, that's not going to work. That's not going to work for Swiss Financial Center, and that's not going to work for the banks. We don't want that.
We've got the last question, I'm afraid, for Brigitte, the angel investor as well.
Yeah. Yes, one question that I'd like to know a little bit philosophically is, do you expect that when you look at some of the regulatory matters, will we be trying to say, how do we align so we make it very easy for fintech companies like us to operate in Switzerland but throughout Europe, or most likely we'll have to find some solutions in the EU, and then Switzerland will be also something separate that we will need to do philosophically?
Well, that's an important question about market access, not very philosophical in that sense. Who wants to take this?
I might take the first part, maybe Ruedi takes the second part, because it's a political issue as well. It's not philosophical, it's really down to the core of our problems at the moment. Market access to the European Union is not as good as it should be. Market access to the rest of the world is definitely okay. So this could be a problem, but we are working together with the politicians on solutions. We have certain solutions on a binational area, and but it should be more, and it could be a problem. But on the other hand, as you see, Google has set up shop here in Switzerland as a huge European headquarters. So I guess there are areas and the reasons why Switzerland is still a very good place to develop business ideas, to implement them, and to make them successful. But it's a challenge for us.
So I would like to give an answer as a computer scientist and not as a politician. I think fintech means for me that you can handle generic regulation. So actually it doesn't matter where you ask for first approval. You can implement it for Singapore or Hong Kong also. That is for me fintech. All the rest is for me very old-fashioned banking software, because they have this problem that they have to change a lot of things if they change regulation. But I think a clever fintech company knows how to deal this, that they can bring the product out in several regulations. That must be the key. Otherwise, I would not invest one Swiss franc in this company.
Okay, interesting. I found a very nice quote by Bertrand Piccard this morning in a tweet that he sent out. He was saying that innovation is not a new idea we have, but it's an old belief that we get rid of. And that I thought was quite pertaining and quite interesting for our discussion today. If I can just give you all the final, the last words here. What's the old belief in this regulatory, in this policy debate, in this whole discussion that you think we should get rid of? Ruedi, can I start with you?
Very spontaneous, I would say. You don't have first to ask. Not everything that is not forbidden is not allowed. Do it.
Alexandre?
As an entrepreneur, I think that it's nice when you put some money and that you're regulated and you're a bit, as I would say, safe for a few years. So, as an entrepreneur, I think the best way is, to have some guidelines sometimes.
Yeah, I take that up. So, yeah, I think you have to also to lose the angst from Finma and talk with us and get rid of this old thing that we only want to handicap innovation. I think talk to us and we look what we can do.
And it's great that you are here, and thank you very much for listening. Thomas, last word.
Thank you. I think it's the speed that has changed. In the past, you have time to develop strategies, and so on. Today, I think in this digitalization, speed is essential. Therefore, you cannot do the thing in the same way as in the past.
Okay. That's it. Thank you very much. Great panel. Thank you for participating. Thanks for the good chat.